This week I remembered my Betty and Veronica shirt, and I'm very, very excited to talk to you about the next 2 episodes of Riverdale. Episode 3 was amazing, but exceptionally so for giving us Darth Betty, our Lord, our Savior, our Promised One, compromiser of our sexual orientation. It was just amazing. What I love about what they've done with Betty is that they've shown from the very beginning that Betty Cooper is an extremely tightly wound individual because her mother is a sociopath. And it's all building up to show that she is very, she herself is very confused about who she is, because so much of who she is wrapped up in making her mother feel secure, being there for Archie, now with Veronica, and especially her feelings about Polly are very complicated. And so in this episode where she got her sort of like the revenge on Chuck, and she started calling herself Polly and calling Chuck Jason, it very much seemed like there is this strange split inside of Betty about who she is, who Polly is, and what they mean to each other, which is why there is this huge fan theory right now about if Polly and Betty are the same person, but I'll talk more about that in the end with thoughts and theories. This whole episode reminded me of the movie Carrie 2: The Rage. Like, you get a bunch of like really popular rich dudes using girls and their sexuality, like, fantasy football cards to get their stats up by doing it with this particular girl who's shy, virgin, blah 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 blah. And I was glad that the episode managed to both go deep enough into the issue and show how it affects the girls, but also not go in a place where it became a Lifetime movie special. You get Veronica, who went on a date with Chuck and they just made out, but Chuck decides to be a thirst bucket and put on Instagram that she got, sprayed with maple syrup, which is just a disgusting visual. I looked at that and I was like, like, it's wretched. I was like, that's disgusting, Chuck. I expected better from you. And then Veronica's like not having it at all, and she bursts into the boys' locker room and tells him to take it off. He's like, no, I'm not. And so she and Betty and Ethel, played by the same actress who played Barb in Stranger Things, all come together to basically expose these guys for using these women as playing cards, taking advantage of them, and getting their girl revenge on. It was a very solid episode because it got to build the relationship more between Betty and Veronica, show more of Betty's psychosis or whatever's going on with her, and tell a really good story about girls coming together to like stand up against a bunch of douchebags who are taking advantage of them for no other reason than because they can. And it's because of this that we find out that Jason was participating in all of this, which Cheryl did not know about, and that Polly was one of the quote-unquote victims on the board. But it seems like he was semi-serious about Polly. Again, it's all very confusing. And I think the only thing about Jason's murder that I think is interesting is how Polly is wrapped up in it. Like, I find Polly as a character much more interesting, and we haven't even seen her yet. I'm just like, I'm all about Polly. But the important thing is that I think that plot related to the larger overarching story of Jason and his mystery, that Jughead joins the Blue and Gold with Betty to help investigate the Jason Blossom murder, and they end up interviewing Dilton Doily, who, he lies to them initially, but eventually they get the whole story out of him, that he is the one who fired his gun on the 4th of July, which Cheryl heard and Miss Grundy and Archie heard. But in order to not get that published in the paper, he tells them that Miss Grundy's car was at by the Sweet River where Jason Blossom's body was found, and because Archie early in the episode confessed that he was there on the 4th of July, they put 1 and 2 together and reveal that like Archie and Miss Grundy were there together, which Jughead knew, Betty did not. And also with Cheryl, she tells us what we probably already figured about Jason, that this was all an attempt for Jason to escape Riverdale, and that he was supposed to be fine. And he was alive when the gunshot was put out, so that was a red herring. But again, solid, fun episode, really enjoyed it. Episode 4, however, was still a good episode, don't get me wrong, but it was much weaker because Archie and young Grundy were at the forefront of it, and they are just the most boring part of the entire show because the actors don't have any chemistry together. Miss Grundy is clearly sketchy. Archie's just deluded, and I'm just watching the whole thing happen. I'm just kind of like, why was this the choice? And I think when they revealed that Miss Grundy was taught Jason Blossom, I'm like, hopefully that will lead to something, and her purpose of being like maybe a creepy child predator is gonna keep being built up because she clearly is one. But I hope that now we can just give that a break, because I really just don't like that storyline. It's just so boring. And it's like the same episode that's happening, we have Veronica realizing that her mother is involved in some shady shit connected to her father, which, you know, connects her to the mayor, who is corrupt and is using this to help build Riverdale and fund their campaign. And they're using Jughead's father, who's a gang leader, to help do the whole story. Jughead is fucking homeless now because the area that the lodges are gonna buy is tearing down his home and his job. We have Betty, who is further going along this weird break between her and her mother and trying to break in from her mommy dearest bullshit. And all of those things, you know, even Kevin is getting a love interest. All of these things are interesting. Archie and Miss Grundy is just not. There's nothing there besides sketchiness, and it's like, but Archie is just going through the whole thing like, but I trust her, and I care about her, and I know what's going on between us, eyebrows, hair. I'm just like, the actor is fine. It's not his fault, and it's just that this is a boring story. And it adds nothing, it assists nothing, it's just there to be there. I think what was really telling, and probably one of the more upsetting parts of it for me, was that you have Alice Cooper reads Betty's journal after Betty breaks into Miss Grundy's car like a boss, and you know, finds the gun, figures out that her name is really Jennifer Gibson, all this kind of stuff. And Alice, you know, finds the gun, instantly finds Betty's journal and was like, oh, I'm gonna handle this shit today. And I was like, you know what, Alice Cooper, you crazy, but in this instance, you a little bit correct. And like, so she goes, grabs Archie's dad, takes him to the classroom, exposes everybody's shit. And yet, because Alice Cooper just wants to stop Betty and Archie from being friends, what the real issue, which is the fact that Miss Grundy is having sex with her student, is ignored. And instead it's like, Alice Cooper, why are you so crazy? Why do you hate Archie so much? And for me as an audience member, I'm like, Alice, listen. You want Betty to see Archie for who he really is. All Archie is dumb and boring and hot. Like, that's it. There's nothing there. He's not going to corrupt your daughter because he does not have anything to corrupt her with. He is basic as a bitch can get. I mean, the only thing that she'll be getting from him is maybe good dick. Maybe. Why she hates Archie so much will only be connected if there is somehow a deeper Jason, Archie, you know, connection, besides that they're both very pale redheads with terrible dye jobs. Like, unless there's something more than that, I just can't understand why everyone's like, you and Jason, like, they keep doing this where they keep making these weird parallels, like giving him his jersey. In the preview for the next episode, Mrs. Blossom is like touching Archie's face. I'm like, okay. Hopefully they will build something more to make this connection stronger, but as of right now, it just makes Alice look even crazier than she is. Which, you know, it's like, come on. Like, she could just be so much stronger than this. It's just that Archie is just not really doing anything. But thankfully, Miss Grundy is gone, aka Jennifer. Her ass is out. And we can start moving forward with the actual interesting stuff. I want to know more about Jughead's dad and this whole sketchy deal. We're going to get the funeral next episode that looks very, very, you know, what's the fuck is that book called? Wuthering Heights-y. So I'm feeling it. I'm good for everything. And again, solid episode 3. Like, when Betty came out of that scene, everyone was like, I can't even do this. I was like, Veronica, you're not heterosexual. And I'm going to talk about more of this later, but like, there's this whole thing about Betty and Veronica and how their relationship is sexually. And I just really feel like I don't need them to be lesbians because that would be fun for me. It's an honest thing where I feel like they have the deeper connection and bond, and Archie just seems like someone who brings them together and not really the glue. You know what I mean? Like, the Archie is what helps them meet each other and get together, but really they are the ones who become close. So the reason why I ship Betty and Veronica is not just because it's hot and because I like the two characters and because I always think they would look good together. I think it's because they seem more like a couple who would be there for each other, protect each other, than Archie and Betty do. Because Betty is just basically sacrificing everything about herself for Archie, and that's not a relationship. At least not in my mind. But until then, I just wanted to have a few of my thoughts and theories. So one, I love how Bughead, Betty and Jughead is now becoming more of a thing in like the fan base, because I've always shipped Betty and Jughead. I feel like Betty and Jughead have like a great relationship, and I'm gonna put a clip here of like one of my favorite scans from the comics about Jughead saying about how if he was gonna be with a girl, be with Betty, because I'm like, yes, they would be perfect together. Like for me, I always saw it as Archie with like some rando, Betty with Jughead, and Reggie with Veronica. I feel like those were the couples that made like the most sense to me. I know that in the Life with Archie comics that Jughead's with Midge, that just kind of feels like a throwover. Like I didn't really understand why Reggie would be with Betty. In that universe where Archie and Veronica are married, it kind of seems like, they just put them together. But at the same time, you know, I can't really see Archie with any of them. Not even Cheryl, because I like Cheryl and Dilton. They're cute together. I just feel like Archie would be with someone not of the core 3 options he usually has. And also, let me just say that everyone who's like, Jughead being asexual doesn't matter. Hush your mouth. For real. Like, just stop. Stop. Because really what you're concerned about is shipping. And Jughead can be with whoever the fuck he wants and still be asexual. Being asexual does not mean that he can't be in a relationship. It doesn't mean he can never ever have sex. It just means that his sexual drive and his sexual inclinations are not the same as everybody else, and that should be acknowledged. If you want to write your little / fan fiction, learn to work with that and not work around it because you don't know how to deal with it. Phone a friend, look up the Googles, ask Jeeves, Bing it, whatever you need to do, but don't erase it just because you don't understand it, because that's your problem, not Jughead's. And the whole Polly is Betty theory, like at first I heard it and I was like, that's a little bit too much, but then I remembered my girl VC Andrews wrote a book called My Sweet Audrina, and it is about a girl who is raised thinking that she has this older sister who is raped and murdered, and her family tells her like, she was raped and murdered, that's why we have to keep you here and you can't do shit, blah blah blah. And then it is revealed that Audrina is really the sister. There was no sister, that's her. She was raped and she just kind of had like this amnesia, and her parents convinced her that they just basically started over with this girl. And the scene where Betty goes to her mother and is like, what's my name? She's like, Elizabeth Cooper. It's like, that's right, I'm not Polly, I'm me. That just made me think of Sweet Audrina. I'm like, oh my god, are they gonna pull a Sweet Audrina? Because this show is so VC Andrews that I can totally see that happening, and that was immediately where my mind went. So I think that the Polly Betty thing is probably not true because everybody else has seen Polly and knows that Polly exists separate from Betty, but I would believe it if they did choose to go that way somehow. It isn't true, but if they were to say it was, I would be okay with it, basically. I would buy that. Also, no chick. This is still the beginning of my chick watch, waiting for Chick Cooper to make an appearance. I was thinking that what if Polly got pregnant with Jason's kid and it's a little boy named Chick Cooper. I will also accept that if Chick cannot be Betty's brother, he can be Betty's nephew. I accept that as well. Let's see. Oh yeah. I wrote, Jennifer is a child predator who wears bad Lolita sunglasses and looks at teenage boys like ice cream sundaes because she's just so creepy. Like the scene with her in her stupid car or her stupid heart. Go away. I just can't stand her. Jughead being homeless to me is a really interesting storyline that they could be working on, because very rarely do we see working class and homeless poor families on television, especially on shows like on stations like the CW. So to see homelessness, especially childhood and teen homelessness, I think could be a really important thing, and I hope that they don't kind of skate around and they really do make an effort to show what it is like growing up without a home, because I think that's something that a lot of people do deal with, and is something that would be a great representation of that reality for some teenagers. For many teenagers, because there is a population of child homelessness that gets skirted under the rug. So yeah, and even though they've established that Veronica is half Latina, they haven't really said what her ethnicity is. Like, her mother keeps calling her Mija, and it's like, I get that. That's your way of, like, putting a marker of ethnicity onto her, but I don't know what her nationality actually is, because if I'm right, the actress who plays Veronica and the actress who plays her mother are two different ethnicities. So I would like to know what Veronica is ethnic wise and what her mother is supposed to be ethnic wise in the show, and not just, oh, Latina, because it's not a one shoe fits all identity. Kevin is still underdeveloped, but there is hope. I still don't buy Cheryl as a fucking popular girl, and when Veronica read her for filth about being a 90s teen like villain, I was like, Veronica, you're so right, except that she would be the loser. Like, she's like every bad Bring It On villain. Like, she's like the like preppy privileged girl who's like, look at my sister, she's gonna perform, it's gonna be great. Like, she's just the worst of everything. I really love the shout outs to Betty's Diary, the real Miss Grundy making an appearance with her little polka dot dress, living for it, and Jellybean Jones. I really hope she's not dead. Just saw a fly. Fucking hate flies, I swear to God. I really hope that they redeem Chuck, because Chuck was basically one of the first, or probably the first, like, real black character on Archie in the comics, and he's like this really sweet artist with his girlfriend Nancy. They've been together forever. Like, I don't want him to just go out as being the bad guy who, like, slut shames girls. Like, I really hope that they can redeem Chuck. Like, maybe him being off the team, he has to draw a lot, he becomes an artist, he finds himself, meets him, a nice dark-skinned, cool girl with Bantu knots and a septum piercing that could change his life. Like, I really want that for Chuck. So, yeah, I'm still really loving Riverdale. I think it's a really fun, niche show for, like, this weird V.C. Andrews, Twin Peaksy comic world, and I'm having so much fun talking about it, and I'd love to hear what you guys think, and what are your thoughts and theories. Let me know down below, and see you in 2 weeks.